Crave was conceived as a way to deliver our strong educational mission and our membership's desire for their continued learning. Through the Crave series, our chapter will deliver webinars and virtual meetings to deliver timely and relevant topics that are affecting our industry today.
It's about the effort that we expend to connect with people. But you have an opportunity to see people, you have an opportunity to chat with people. We may not have an opportunity to have appetizers and share a drink with each other, but we stay connected, and that's really the most important thing.
Being able to work together and learn together in a new format, a new environment, really helped us take those pre-existing relationships and friendships that I had to another level.
CoreNet has taken the leadership in these kinds of conversations for years and years, and so we're delighted to have this long-term relationship with CoreNet.
I found the CoreNet to be a great community of dedicated real estate professionals, and what it means to me is it gives me a wider network of people with whom to share ideas, to derive the best learnings, to test and experiment with things that I'm working on.
This program is all about personal growth and becoming the leader that you want to be.
CoreNet has always led the way when it comes to supporting the professional development of our members. Our roundtable discussions, our education workshops, and our professional development programs are just part of what makes CoreNet so valuable to our members. It was critical for us to find a way to still be able to facilitate all of this. Crave has provided us the platform to be just as effective and to still provide that value to our members in a virtual environment.
CoreNet not only provides a platform for different groups to come together regardless where you come from in terms of organization, but really help each member to feel like they belong in this organization.
We have a diverse membership base, and you will find that members come from all walks of life and from all over the world. However, it's still an area of focus for us to improve upon and to embrace equity, inclusion, and diversity through increasing awareness and taking action, as we know this will lead to more success for the organization and for our members.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to present workplace technology strategies and the flow of business. And hopefully we can answer some of those questions with some metrics in our panelists. Should I stay or should I go? Our next slide will let you know we have some great upcoming events. We have 3 in January, 1 scheduled for February already. And if you can see, 1 is already sold out. So please take time today to look at the CoreNet website and register for these classes early. CoreNet has a bunch of social media. You guys are important to us. We want to hear your feedback. We want to know what's going on with you, your company. And if you have any suggestions for making our content better, please check us out on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and connect with the social media liaison, Steve Smith at Northstar. More importantly, our programs today wouldn't be happening throughout the months or this next coming year without our great corporate partners. Here's a bunch right here. We want to make sure to thank our gold sponsors and our platinum sponsors and our gold sponsors. Some housekeeping notes for today. We are going to be doing a Q&A session. Please use your chat on your dashboard, use your chat box. We'll be taking questions at the last 5 to 10 minutes of the presentation, and Brigitte Beltran will be moderating it and answering your questions. Right now, I'm going to introduce some of our panelists. They will elaborate more about their backgrounds and their companies, but we have, for today's presentation, a landlord, Peter Smith from RXR Realty. We have an occupier, Steve Jobin from National Grid. We have a real estate advisor, Mike DeNamer from JLL, and a technology advisor, Hunter Fleischhood from Comfy Siemens. And today's moderator, I'm going to pass it off to Brigitte Beltran, is at Spaceworks.
Good afternoon, everybody. The pandemic has disrupted nearly every aspect of our lives, including tasks as fundamental as going to work. While many office workers are still working from home, others in the world are now beginning to return to their office in person. However, in the US, 2 out of 3 workers are still uncomfortable returning to the workplace. So that brings the question about what workplace technology strategies are being presently developed to bring employees back to the office. Outbreak prevention, workplace safety, and peace of mind will be top concern as employees begin to reopen their office doors. But let's now discuss with our panel of experts about the strategies and technologies they have developed to ensure the flow of business and help employees figure out how they should stay at home or go to the office. Before I start asking questions to our panelists, I'd like to let you know that we're going to run 3 polls throughout this program and look forward to your responses. So now back to our panelists who are going to introduce themselves. So please tell us about you, your role, and how you have responded to the pandemic in terms of implementing technology strategies or developing strategies developing technologies to support productivity and maintain culture. Go ahead. Who would like to start first?
I'll be more than happy to start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Dobin, and I have the distinguished honor to be the president of our amazing chapter. And during the day, I also work for National Grid and lead their real estate and workplace strategy. Our office employees, like many of you, went from predominantly in the office to 100% remote. And with this dramatic shift, our organization maintained the lights on and gas flowing for our customers. This experience has amplified the need for work-life balance. A majority of our employees want to work in a hybrid model post-pandemic. So we've looked at various technology solutions and are going to implement a desk reserving system to allow our employees to find that balance with work and life. Thanks, Brigitte.
Thank you. Who else would like to take it on?
Hi, good afternoon. Oh, go ahead, Hunter.
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hunter Fleischhood, and I lead new business sales at Comfy. I'm also a longtime member of CoreNet. I'm a member of the Carolinas chapter board, and am a longtime friend of the New England chapter. Comfy is part of Siemens, and we are a CRE technology company. We provide an employee experience mobile app, and we provide the CRE function, data insights, and analytics to help you understand how your employees are utilizing your space and interacting with workplace services, which leads to better management of the workplace and data-driven, informed decision-making about your portfolio. So in March 2020, we started to pivot our go-to-market strategy and enhance our product to ensure that enterprises and Comfy customers could deal with crisis management phase and then begin to plan for a safe return to work and ultimately have a sustained, safe, and healthy workplace and also know how your employees are interacting with the workplace and utilizing their space in the new hybrid model. Happy to be here.
Good. Good afternoon. My name is Mike DeNamer. I'm a senior director in the technology advisory practice at JLL. And like all of you, we have learned how to do things differently over the course of the last 9 or 10 months. A lot of what JLL teams have been doing for the last year is working with clients to assess readiness for return to the office, to build the infrastructure to support that return. And increasingly, our discussions are turning to a dialogue about what the new normal is going to look like and how we can use workplace technology to adapt and to support that. I know we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, but just to hit kind of the mountaintops at the beginning here, we've worked with clients to deliver both the JLL developed solutions as well as a lot of third-party technology around things like socially distanced space plans. How do we take the 100 seats that we used to have and set them up for 50 seats in a less dense environment? We're seeing, like Stephen mentioned, a lot of activity around space reservation tools. And we can talk later about how that ties into things. And complementing that, space use measurement tools, whether it be sensors or other tools, as well as the analytics to go along with it. Kind of to the side of this, we're also seeing some unique ways of deploying technology-enabled cleaning protocols, whether that be around robotics for cleaning or sensor-based validation of cleaning, because of course, cleaning becomes such a new challenge in this COVID world. And just a couple of other things, JLL has delivered an AI-enabled, what we call a digital assistant that goes under the name JET, which is kind of the next evolution of workplace experience apps and supports really a work from anywhere type of a solution. And finally, we're doing a lot of work right now with clients to plan out a return to office strategy. What does that look like? Who does that encompass? How do you plan for a real re-entry? And then beyond that, what does that reimagined real estate portfolio look like? So again, glad to be here. It's not the first time I've been with Cornet New England, but it's a great opportunity. Appreciate your time today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Smith, reporting live from Midtown New York. Happy to be with you all today. I work at RXR Realty, leading business development and strategic partnership efforts for the RXR Digital Lab. RXR is a vertically integrated owner-operator. We're the third largest landlord here in New York City. Most of our holdings are commercial office assets. We also have a strong and growing pipeline of residential and industrial facilities as well. The Digital Lab was founded in early 2019. This was through the conviction of our CEO, Scott Reckler, understanding that commercial property landlords and owners had to do more than just put up 4 walls and a roof and collect rent, but had to really enhance the way that we were providing space and real estate as a service to our tenants, both existing and prospective. And so the Digital Lab has a mandate to implement digital solutions and technologies in order to improve our core business, optimize our building operations and the performance of our buildings, and to enhance overall tenant experience. In response to COVID, we worked very closely with partners, McKinsey and Microsoft, to develop what we're calling the Rxwell Platform. This is a very comprehensive set of solutions that are enabling a safe return to the workplace for our tenants and employees, which encompasses over 70,000 people across 20 million plus square feet of office space here in New York City proper and in Long Island as well. We've rapidly deployed this starting in February, March of last year, all the way through till the end of the summer, and now continue to evolve the platform and solutions. The way that we've structured it is in 3 layers. First and foremost is smart building technology. So looking at sensors, whether it be indoor air quality sensors or occupancy sensors, feeding that data into a data lake and an analytics platform where we're doing edge processing to then push out data insights and analytics. And then lastly, putting a lot of this, transparently in front of, the users that need to be able to take advantage of that. So we've developed an engagement app, and then tenant command centers and dashboards for leaders in HR functions or corporate real estate functions. So we've done a lot in the past month, a couple of months and year, and are really looking forward to continuing to evolve, our solution set. So happy to join the conversation today.
Thank you very much, Peter Hanold. So I guess we are going to launch our first poll, our first question with the vaccine in hand. Do you think that you will go back to work and business as usual? Answer yes or no. And we're going to wait for a second just to see what everybody answers. And what is your take on that? So, and then I think as we get the answer, in the meantime, I'm going to start. Oh, here you go. We get the answer. Wonderful. Well, yeah, like everybody else, right? With nothing, it's going to be a new normal. And 69% of people agree with the fact that, yeah, it's not going to be work as usual or as it used to be. Thank you for your input, everyone. Okay, so that leads us to the second question that we have for our panelists there, and understanding, that you told us about either like what technologies you're implementing, your strategies, the technologies you've been developed or implementing in the context of your strategy. We'd love to understand what technology functionalities do you presently see getting the most traction in the workplace, understanding that maybe there is not even 10% of people that are back to the office. So what do you see as the most successful? And any of you can take it on. So go ahead.
Brigitte, it's a great question. I think the most important impact that we've had to face over the last 10 months is human safety and employee safety and health. And I think the initial attention to how to use technology to preserve that was driving what we were doing for our clients. Contact tracing was a new word in people's vernacular, and they wanted to understand how to use it. Health attestations and checking temperature upon entry. We're doing that everywhere we go, it seems, the grocery store, the gym, as well as the workplace. And while safety and health continues to be of utmost importance, our point of view is what will have the most lasting impact is that less people will be in the office for a greater portion of their work week. And that is really going to shift how we as corporate real estate professionals serve our enterprises. It's a great opportunity to optimize our portfolio, but to ensure that the assets that we continue to operate are of utmost quality and draw people in. And how do you get the same number of employees in presumably less space? What I see as most important is a precise tool to manage space reservations so that employees that plan to come to the office a day or 2 days a week know that they're going to be safe, their space will be clean, they'll have physical distancing, there will be management of capacity, and also that they'll have a productive day. They can see what teammates are coming to the office on the same day. They can reserve the right workspace for the task at hand. So I think health and safety, utmost importance, greatest impact, how we manage space going forward.
Thank you, Hunter. So, Steve, I'd like to get your take on this, and from an occupier's perspective, what are your thoughts on Comfy's technology there and what the priorities they emphasized?
So, Hunter hit it on the head, right? We want to provide a safe, collaborative environment with the user in the mind. As we all know, when space was developed pre-COVID, it was the me and we space, right? Where am I going to do my head down? Where am I going to do my collaboration? And I'll specifically talk about National Grid. National Grid has gone and realized that, oh, we don't have to be in the office. Oh, we don't have to, dedicate and manage my team in front of me. Now we've gone to a virtual environment. So now it's how do we bring people back in the office? How are we going to coerce them back in, that it's safe, that we care about their health, that we want collaboration, we want to learn from each other. So we're redefining our space in different types of collaboration zones, looking at the traditional conference room to a agile collaboration environment with movable whiteboards. But how do we get to this space? Because everyone's going to want it. It's reserving it. It's using technology, allowing us to come into this space, allowing us to be successful. So everything that Hunter said, and what we're doing is we're looking at our collaboration areas within our building and creating zones. What type of zones are we going to have?
I think I just add on to that, you know, the first technology that we see is more than likely this space reservation tools, because almost all of the, or much more of the space will be agile, right? But then the next tools that need to come into place in terms of technology are understanding demand. What does the demand forecast look like on a Monday or a Friday versus Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if the expectation is that employees will be in the office sometimes, but maybe not, you know, all of the time. And, you know, the tools that make that possible are a big piece of it. And then understanding how to put people in the space in a way that does foster collaboration and engagement. So if I'm going to be in the space, who else is in the space that I normally work with? And how do we work, how do we get assigned to work closely together? So one of the tools that JLL is deploying is a way to take those requests to be in the office and use analytics and AI to interpret work style preferences and associations of people that you work with and place you in a seating arrangement in the workplace that is consistent with the people that you normally work with. So I think the last piece of this is really beyond the micro, the immediate return to office, is the bigger question of what does the portfolio look like? When we have much lower densities of people returning to the office, how do you do portfolio planning? And we're seeing a lot of interest now around tools that allow us to work with our clients to put together much better portfolio level strategies for the next 3, 5, 10 years.
Thank you, Mike. Peter, we'd love to understand your perspective from the landlord standpoint, right? And what do you see getting the most traction in your buildings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from a macro level, you know, I see COVID as an accelerant and not a change agent. And what I mean by that is that there's been, you know, trends and paradigm shifts afoot in the real estate industry well before COVID hit our shores. Those are being accelerated based off of our current crisis and pandemic. So you look at, you know, flexible working, whether that's flex works, you know, co-working space, or just the ability to work remotely. You look at the increasing, as Hunter was mentioning, increased interest in wanting to know health and safety and well-being, and how the built environment affects our day-to-day, you know, and long-term health. And then all that can be activated and enabled via technology. We don't know what the future of the workplace is. There's a lot of ideation, a lot of thoughts. But what we do know is that in order to have, you know, an informed strategy and to be agile, you need data. And so we've taken, you know, a pretty strong stance in what we're calling a phygital approach, combining the physical assets with the digital, and understanding ways in which we can, you know, procure data from our buildings and from our people to be able to make more informed decisions, and having flexibility and modularity in the way that we're delivering those solutions over time. From a landlord perspective, obviously our scope is somewhat limited to the base building and the things that we can control, but we do have a very open relationship with our tenants and wanting to empower and enable them in any way that we can. Some of the biggest you know, areas of interest that have bubbled up in the near term is, you know, having transparency and visibility into real-time building analytics. So that can be for, you know, indoor air quality, looking at, you know, capacity and traffic within the spaces. With a COVID lens, we're looking at, you know, bathroom occupancy. knowing that those are constrained spaces where you're going to run into challenges with social distancing. So how do we make sure that we can, communicate to tenants, how the bathroom's occupied to be able to, make those informed decisions. And then secondarily, I think is the point that has been well made, is as we enter into this new hybrid environment where some people are working from work, some people are working from home, how do we make sure that they have the tools to be able to effectively collaborate and engage with their team members? I want to know that if I'm coming to the office, there's got to be a reason for it. I want to make sure that the folks that I want to collaborate with are going to be there too, and we're going to have the right space that we need to be effective in our work. And then also, how do we make sure that property management teams and HR teams have the right tools and resources to effectively manage that distributed workforce? So whether that be rotation management tools or supply and demand and space utilization, these are the things that we're seeing be most relevant, not only for the near term, but also we think for the long tail as well.
Thank you very much. Sorry, go ahead. Please go ahead.
If I may, just to jump on something that Peter just said about people being in the office and at home, and how do we have that cross collaboration to happen? If we want to be in an inclusive environment, we need to make sure that technology could support that successfully, because there are going to be people that do not ever want to come back into the office for whatever reason, and that's okay. And then there are going to be people that are coming into the office that want to be in the office, like the extroverts like myself. But we want to make sure that technology can support that and support the different work styles, so we create this inclusion specific collaboration environment. Inclusive, sorry, tongue-tied.
Thank you, Steve. All right, so that brings us to then understanding. So how do you communicate with each other, right? Between the landlord developing technologies, JLL as a technology advisory, and Comfy as a product developer. How do you all talk to each other to support occupiers and not be redundant in the technologies that might overlap with each other? So, like, for example, the intersection of landlord and tenant technologies with the elevators use as an example, how all that works and doesn't collide. Who would like to take it on first?
I'll draw an illustration to maybe share examples of how that's important. And so picture, if you will, a Class A vertical structure, let's say 50 floors, with 15 tenants, primary tenants. Several of those may be Comfy customers, we hope. And one of the things Comfy can provide is management of shifts and arrival times to load level capacity and ensure proper physical distancing. So we may provision, Brigitte, you're scheduled to come in on Tuesday at between 9:15 and 9:45 to manage the flow into the building. Well, if 15 occupiers are all managing their own shift schedules, then that's not going to work if we're in one of Peter's buildings and all showing up in the lobby at the same time. So loading and unloading the buildings through common areas and up vertical and down vertical transportation is where, if we're trying to manage shifts for an occupier client, we have to coordinate with the landlord whose occupiers represent their tenants. And you mentioned elevator use. Comfy does integrate with many OT systems and building infrastructure systems, temperature, lighting, access control, elevators, visitor management systems. Well, all of those serve our occupiers well if they're in single tenant buildings and have control over all of that infrastructure. Many times our customers are in a multi-tenant building, and the landlord has to be part of the conversation because we want our customers to have the experience of using the mobile phone app to integrate with those systems, not only in their tenant space, on their floors and suites, but through the common areas of the building.
Thank you, Hunter. So Peter or Mike, would you like to add to Hunter's?
Yeah, I think there's the intersection of the tenant with the base building, not only in the elevators, but obviously in things like parking and security, and those are conversations that we're having across the board. I think the key to all of this is whether it's the tenant versus the landlord, or whether it's developing strategies even within an occupier environment themselves, right? You have real estate, you've got business leaders, you've got HS&E, you've got security. It's really about thinking about the challenge, not in a technology perspective, but in an use case and in an outcome perspective. And sometimes there's a tendency to think about how can we deploy utilization sensors because that's the key to moving forward. It might be a part of the process of moving forward, but more often than not, there is an ecosystem of technology or a stack that is the solution to a challenge. And more often than not, again, you get involved in conversations where the focus is on the technology. And as a technology person myself, I often pump the brakes and say, look, before we go there, let's go back to the use case and the business outcome, and let's get that clearly defined and agreed upon so that the real estate team isn't doing something while the IT team is doing something else, while the HR group is doing something else. So it's really about thinking about this from a comprehensive standpoint or a multidimensional standpoint.
Yeah, and I think to build off of that, I mean, as a landlord, we've definitely procured technology solutions, hardware, software, over time, and we became increasingly frustrated with the fact that these are oftentimes singular point solutions that don't speak to one another. And so I think what we set off to do is to find a way to integrate them, and that's really what was how the Rxwell platform was born, was the ability to tie and stitch together in a comprehensive ecosystem. Where we could draw insights from multiple single point source solutions to really help provide the insights and actionable pieces of information that our teams needed. So we work very openly with multiple software, hardware partners and vendors on integration. We're not a hardware shop, but we look to scour the market to see what's best in class, and then to be able to bring that into our platform. So on the vendor front, very, very open ecosystem. On the tenant side, like I said earlier, I mean, I think that we've got a very open relationship with our tenants and wanting to stoke that dialogue. We've actually dedicated what we call RXR experience officers. These are individuals with a face and a name and a smile in the lobby that are there to provide that real relationship bridge from us as a landlord to our tenants. To be able to understand how they're doing in their space, what their needs are, and then to do our best to be able to solve for those needs. Because at the end of the day, attraction and retention of tenants in our buildings is core to our business, and so we're not going to shy away from it. So when we look at solutions that start to sort of go into that middle ground, is this landlord or is it tenant? We're open to have that conversation and understand what ways in which we can start to proactively develop solutions. And I'll just give one as an example. We saw the need, I'll give two as an example, actually. We saw the need for workforce rotation tools. And so we built that into our platform. So we, ground up, we built that. And so all of our tenants, through the Rxwell app have access to assign their team members to, red, white, and blue teams, and be able to manage that, days and times of the week that they're coming to the building. The second one, and this has come up more recently, is one of the biggest hurdles in getting our tenants back to the office is testing, COVID testing to catch asymptomatic individuals. And so we set out, we actually found partners in the healthcare sector to stand up, and we've now deployed a full, COVID programmatic testing for any tenants that want to, take advantage of that. So that's something that falls well outside of our traditional purview as a real estate owner, but is something that, we worked collectively with our tenants to be able to deliver.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Peter. That's great. So I think that this brings us to the second poll, which is, do you feel like you have your return to the office strategy in hand, or do you plan to hire a consultant? And we have heard a lot of different answers from clients on that spectrum. So we'd love to see what you have to say about this. Do you have a plan, or you need outside help?
We have a plan.
Wonderful.
We call it work from anywhere. but we have a plan, and I'm not going to say it's 100% developed, but we're way beyond the 80% mark. We know what technology solutions we're going to use, and now we're entering the phase of change management. How are we going to do it? Fortunately, when this started right in the beginning, the collective property team looked at this as an opportunity to change how we work, because we know it wasn't going to be like this forever. We know it's going to go back to somewhat of normalcy as we knew it. And we hit the ground running right from the beginning, and we got a little ahead of the curve. Now it feels like we're a little behind the curve, but we were able to spend time early on this project.
Thank you very much, Steve. And my apologies for the background noise. I'm in New York City and it's loud. So it's amazing to hear that 78% of people have a plan, and that only 22% don't have a need for outside help. So that's going to lead me. I apologize. That's going to lead me to the third question around. How are your technologies supporting real-time employee success and inclusion at home today? And how are you preparing for the hybrid way that they will be working in the future? And I'm happy to repeat if you haven't heard me. Are you good?
I'm good. On the last part, how are we planning for the hybrid solution is pretty much what we've been talking about, right? We feel out of our 8,000 office employees, under 10%, if we want to dial back a little more, about 8% to be precise, will be in the office 100% of the time. That means 92% of an office population who, in essence, was in the office 100% of the time, are going to work remote. So now it's maintaining the culture, maintaining the user experience, and actually enticing people. I think someone said it, enticing them to come back. There's a group of people that want to come back, and there's a group of people like, why should I come back? And we need to entice them to come back for the collaboration, for the growth, and for defining our new culture, whatever that's going to be. So we've been focused on the user experience and how we're going to support it, and always keeping the employees' health and safety in the forefront.
That's an amazing percentage, Steve, that you just mentioned. And Peter mentioned earlier that COVID is an accelerator. It has accelerated the acceptance of a work from anywhere culture. And it's made planning your portfolio and your space a much different problem to solve. I spent most of my career on the end user side in corporate real estate for large banks. And we used to measure demand and utilization with blunt instruments. Our demand came from headcount forecasts from the business units that may be certain for 6 months, but we tried to forecast 3-5 years based on how many headcount will you have? Well, then a headcount could equate to a seat because people came to the office. And does anybody remember measuring utilization by walking around the floors once a quarter with a clipboard and looking for bodies, and if not a body, a purse or a briefcase, a sign of life? That doesn't work anymore, because even someone that's in the office isn't going to an assigned seat. So things like badge data as a first generation, and then occupancy sensors, that we see now, gaining utilization insights from existing Wi-Fi access point infrastructure. And of course, all the data we can build with reservation data, that will inform not only how much space an enterprise needs, but what types of space, and help to level across the peaks and valleys. With regard to work from home, those that are working from home, 50, 60, 70, 80% still want to feel connected. And providing apps and technology that allows them to hear about events and news and be informed on what's coming in the weeks ahead in their company that they may want to plan around, as well as in the near term being given information where they can easily access it on when are we coming back to the office, in what stages, on what timeline, in what teams, what is the policy, how do I need to prepare, and what are you doing to help me feel safe before I come in. Those are some of the things I think companies like Steve's and really all of ours are faced with to touch the employees and make them feel, again, part of the enterprise, part of the culture, and to feel cared about.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a couple of words: flexibility and communication. As I think Hunter mentioned, COVID as an accelerant. Many of us probably have been talking about workplace agility for a long time. Call it whatever you want to by whatever term: hoteling, desk sharing, agile environment. And it took COVID to really prove that it can function, that can work, and that we can have a work from anywhere scenario. Now the question will be, we're not likely to go back to the office space in a one-to-one scenario where I have my space, right? Because it doesn't make sense to have 1,000 seats for 1,000 people any longer. So everything needs to be flexible. And how do you work with that, with those flexible spaces and make those flexible spaces efficient and productive and curate an experience that is collaborative and dynamic in a way that would have happened a little bit more organically in the past. So we've got tools that are emerging to make that happen. I think we've touched on a lot of those, but I will say that from a work from anywhere perspective, some of the bridging the office and the work from home applications, like a digital assistant platform that connects you with your colleagues regardless of where you're at, and makes it super easy to start virtual meetings, whether you're out of your home office or out of your work office, but go into your calendar and open a Teams meeting or open a Zoom meeting without having to go through 27 clicks and finding different applications is a big part of this. And I will say that people are having success creating the office dynamic, even through Teams. And within the JLL world, we have a number of social media channels that are internal to the organization. We had a very vibrant conversation before the holidays about what different streaming shows people were seeing and watching and sharing with each other. And that can happen. It's a little different experience, but it can happen, and we can find ways to curate that event.
Thank you, Mike. So Peter, we'd love to hear your take from a landlord perspective, understanding that you want people to go back to the office and stay there. So tell us more about how you're managing the home /office.
Work from home tools, because we'd like people to come back to the workplace. I think that, you saw the knee-jerk reactions, early on in the pandemic, the calls for, the office is dead, and people over-indexing in both directions, frankly. I mean, I think that we saw other people say, there's going to be a need for more real estate because we have this 6 feet, separation between people. And so I personally believe we're going to shake out, somewhere in the middle, and largely land where we were pre-pandemic. It'll take time. It'll take time to get there. There's going to be some agility and workspace flexibility changes that are already afoot, as I mentioned. But I think we'll land in the same space. What I think that we're seeing is that there's going to be a need to be a reason to come back to the workplace, right? It's not just that I'm going to show up 9 to 5, put my head down, and just do singular work at a previous line desk. There's going to be reasons, whether that be for team collaboration, for client meetings, all the things that make our businesses run. And then I think not to be underestimated is the sense of shared purpose and belonging and vision and sort of all the things that come with being part of a broader team and organization. And I'll tell you, I mean, I think that to Mike's point, there are a lot of technologies out there that are trying to create that virtual culture. I think that it's easy to do when you've already established that culture and you've got people who are engaged with it and then are forced into this. But as you start to see new employees coming into organizations, that's going to be so difficult to have that assimilation process take place totally through the lens of a Zoom or a Teams meeting. I joined RXR at the end of the summer and just after Labor Day. I was fortunate that the organization was already back in the office, and so I was able to onboard and assimilate and meet my team members face to face, albeit through a mask. But couldn't have imagined having to do that in a totally virtual sense. So what we're doing is making sure that the tools and resources and solutions are available, so that when organizations have what they need to come back, that they're equipped and enabled to do so in a very effective and collaborative manner.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Oh, go ahead again. Go ahead.
Every time Peter talks, I want to jump in. No, you hit a topic that I think people should think about is in the new environment, how do we communicate who we are? What's our corporate culture? The onboarding process has changed, right? I started National Grid at the end of January, so I'm not that far off from you. But I haven't been in the office since the beginning of March. Okay. So I think people just have to think about how are we going to get corporate identity or communicate our corporate culture in this new work environment.
Thank you, Steve. So that brings us to the last poll, which is based on today's conversation with landlords and tenants and occupiers, obviously, having place for return in the office. Do you see yourself going back now, in 6 months, in a year, as a hybrid flex plan from home office or others, or never? And we'll give you a minute to just answer. So as you do that, I'm going to launch the last questions to our panel, which is how is real estate collaborating with IT and HR and now EHS to develop and implement technology strategies? And just before you answer, we're just going to look at this poll answer. And yes, 76% of people definitely think that it's going to be a hybrid flex plan, which is kind of the conversation we've been having. So we're all in agreement. Wonderful. So, so who would like to start first on this question around the collaboration with HR, IT, EHS, and to implement those technology strategies?
So representing the tenants, we've always, and this corporate real estate, we've always partnered with HR and IT. They've always been an important data point to the success of a project. Employee health and safety at National Grid is always has always been in the forefront. But for me personally, bringing them to the table has been insightful. And I think during our prep call, someone here was talking about that, so I'm not going to steal the thunder. But it's important to identify who are the key contributors and where can we get flexibility of bringing people on and off the team when needed is really important. And that really came to light during this pandemic.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and simple, but many of you may remember the old commercial of you can pay me now or you can pay me later. And I think that's the answer to this question is if you're going to need to collaborate across real estate, legal, IT, HR at some point in time. And the sooner that you can start that process, the more efficient and effective the outcome is going to be. And there are legitimate reasons to do that, and some new issues that we haven't stumbled across in the past. So when you think about contact tracing, you're getting into some areas of PII and GDPR type questions that really require a broad base of discussion, including HR and IT. So I'll kind of leave it at that.
One of the first probably terms or concepts I learned through CoreNet, it was probably in an MCR class or a summit 15 years ago maybe, was the term supernucleus. I don't know if people remember this, but it was the idea of corporate real estate, with HR, with IT, legal, risk, the CFO. We as an industry, as a discipline, wanted to be in that mix and wanted to have that type of collaboration, and that remains true. What I've seen different is a new group added to the nucleus in the last 10 months to be a more important stakeholder, buyer, and influencer, which is EHS, Employee Health and Safety. Never before have I seen that function within enterprise so integral and so influential in making decisions about the workplace and workplace enabling technology. And it's appropriate with what we've been through. The other thing that I'd say is a little bit different, as technologies like Jet, technologies like Rxwell and Comfy are now used and consumed by every employee in an enterprise. So CRE technology used to be about the lease admin system or the work order system, and often was owned by the corporate real estate organization or a small IT group aligned to support corporate real estate. With the new technologies that are consumed and used by every employee, that's a different part of IT. That's enterprise end user IT that manage everything on a desktop, everything on a smartphone, everything on a device. So I would say we've just extended into a new IT stakeholder set, and with different owners and different levels of control. And that's exciting. That's exciting.
Anybody else would like to add to this? Peter?
I would just say that, I think each of those stakeholders that have been mentioned are critical to the success of, any project. What I've found to be true is that, depending on the organization, there's leadership among one or two of those groups. Some organizations are more driven by, their real estate practice and needs. Others, more so by their HR function. I think there has been an evolution in the traditional HR, less about, benefits and payroll, insurance, to, chief people officers, even seeing the advent of roles such as the chief wellness officer. So I think that there's, health and wellness of our, our employees is becoming much more holistic in the approach, and not just, about, payroll and the things that I mentioned that are more in the traditional sphere. And those stakeholders are increasingly getting more empowered to make, decisions based off of the business, and are mandated in really, to the lifeblood of the business, which is attracting and retaining the best people. And so, more and more I'm seeing those types of roles. Maybe the titles aren't there yet, but those types of individuals, bringing a really big share to the table to move a lot of these conversations forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, everyone. So that leads us to the last part of our event here, where we would like to open it up for Q&A. And I guess we got already several questions. So I will start with the first one that we received, which is, can someone share what software tools they or their clients are using? So at the beginning of our conversation, we spoke about software tools that you're either using or your clients are using. Would you mind just sharing again what those were? Can't remember.
For us, so we partner very closely with Microsoft, and we built our own platform and software. So it sits under the Rxwell brand, but we also partner with other software integrators and firms.
National Grid's deploying a product called Matrix.
Great. Wonderful. So the second question is, we would love to know how you each feel about office as a service going forward, especially Peter as a landlord. Do you see the tenants wanting that kind of space at all? It supports the work from anywhere model.
Interesting question. If I understand office as a service, so we have we have risk, or not risk, we have exposure to co-working within our portfolio. So we have co-working spaces and tenants, and so I think that we realized that was a consumer and organizational need within the industry, It's grown significantly despite the troublesome IPO or lack thereof with WeWork in the earlier part of the year. I still think that sector is still poised for growth. I think that organizations are looking to break up what was traditionally that monolithic office to now more of a hub and spoke model, and understanding ways in which employees can tap into more conveniently located offices, and not necessarily making that longer commute on an everyday basis. Mixing with that, the ability to work from corporate HQ a few days a week, maybe from home a week, and then maybe one of these office as a service or flex spaces. So yeah, I definitely see that, and we're definitely seeing what that entails in terms of our portfolio mix.
Yeah, I would just say maybe think about it a little differently from the traditional maybe WeWork approach or otherwise, and think about it in the context of a corporate environment about flex space, even within the corporate portfolio. There's going to be a different need for space. There's probably going to be an excess of space in the short term, and more space is going to need to be flexible, and maybe thinking about how that space can be used and shared across businesses and business groups. And then non-traditional approaches to things like building incubator space and bringing in startup companies or bringing in academic organizations even and research that can complement a corporate organization.
I'll just add that, and I worked for WeWork for a while, so I have a perspective, and I think that's a very valuable part of any enterprise CRE portfolio strategy, and will continue to be because of the flexibility it adds. But enterprises want even more flexible duration. A 6-month term or a 1-year term move the needle from what traditionally leases look like with co-working. Think about now with employees that may need an office for 1 week and the rest of the time they work from home, or a project is kicking off and a team needs to convene for 2 months. And these are now work from home employees. As enterprises contract their portfolio, there may not be room for an office for a week or a team room for 2 months within the leased and owned portfolio. And that's where co-working, I think, or flex office as a service can serve enterprises well. And in fact, I'll take the opportunity to announce that we formed a partnership with Liquid Space, and Liquid Space helps to provision space as a service from a number of providers. And the concept is, with Comfy, you can search for and find space to book within your own portfolio. But if it's not available in the place you want it, on the day you want it, and the type of facility you need or workspace you need, through Comfy, you can access Liquid Space's 11,000 venues and find what you need on a per day, per hour, per month, per week basis.
Thank you very much, Hunter. And I'll just go through one last quick question around, are you seeing any addition of space that can accommodate children within the space to accommodate remote learning when parents cannot stay at home? Anybody has an answer on this? Maybe
I have not heard that request yet. I'm not saying I won't, but I have not heard that request yet.
Interesting. And Peter, have you thought of this as a landlord? Have you looked into this?
If I understand the question correctly, is this providing on-site childcare or just space for children to be
to accommodate children within the space? Yeah, I would think that would be childcare, right? While the parents are.
I don't think I've seen any move to sort of dedicating physical space or amenities to that. I know that could be more typical in a corporate office campus environment in a more of a suburban setting. What I have seen in the industry at large is organizations are making shifts in policies and procedures and providing more flexibility around time off, even stipends and reimbursements for childcare and things of that nature. So I think that there is movement to accommodate for those types of situations. I just haven't sort of seen it in terms of like a real estate physical solution.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It is now 1 p.m., so that concludes our program. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I guess learned a lot, and I want to believe that our audience did too. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.